Hello everyone, this is Raghav from NLTI and we have a very important topic at hand today, corporate law versus litigation. So many of you enter into law without a clear aim in mind, whether you want to enter into corporate law, whether it's litigation. So today we are going to discuss the two very different paths, which one you should enter into, what are the pros and cons of each and every path, what's the average packages, what's the work role like. So we are going to discuss everything in this PPT today. So first of all, let's just understand what corporate and litigation means. So corporate means you are a lawyer, but you are a lawyer in one of the tier 1 law firms. You handle contract drafting, you handle mergers and acquisitions, you handle private equity. So that is corporate law. Litigation is hardcore practice. When you practice in high court, supreme court, that is pure litigation. Now talking about the fresher packages, if we talk about, so 8 to 18 LPA is the median package that a corporate fresher gets. If you do it from the tier 1 NLUs like NLS Bangalore or Nalsar, then your average packages go up to 15 to 18 LPA. And if you're a litigation fresher, you first have to do some practice under a good advocate. Your package would be around 15,000 to 50,000 per month. It's around 30-40,000. And talking about a top litigator, so here's the thing, there's no upper limit, there's no ceiling to a litigation career. You can charge up to 25 lakhs per appearance if you are a good level advocate. If we talk about Kapil Sibal, Mr. Kapil Sibal, so he charges around 40-50 lakhs for one appearance. And talking about a law firm partner, it's a position which you get after 8 to 10 years. So you have to buy into the firm, and your package after 8 to 10 years would be 1 crore plus. So very different paths, very different starting salaries. But if you talk about the upper ceiling, then obviously litigation is a very good career. If your argument skills are good, if your connections are very strong, then litigation should be your career path. Now let's talk about what these professions entail. So if we talk about corporate law, what you do, as I told you, draft contracts, advise on deals, whether it's mergers and acquisitions, whether it's a proper acquisition deal, ensure legal compliance. So when you are handling these sort of deals, you have to ensure that all compliances are dealt with, and you have to structure the transactions also. So if you are a CA and you are a corporate lawyer, then you get very good packages because you have a knowledge of finance and you have a knowledge of law as well. Now talking about litigation, what you do is, of course, you represent clients in courts, argue cases and appear before judges. I hope everybody knows what a litigator does. Where you work, of course, a law firm or an office, law firm office or a corporate legal department. And talking about litigation, you work in courts, district court, high court, supreme court. And who your client is, companies, businesses and banks and funds. Who your clients are in litigation, they can be individuals, high paying individuals, they can be companies, or they can be government bodies as well. Government body can also be your client. So that is very important to note here. Anybody basically can be your client. Your typical day at a corporate law firm looks like you have to read drafts, you have to negotiate the deals, client calls and due diligence. So it's a lot of paperwork. So if you are somebody who is, you can say, who is happy in doing such a job, who is happy and handling transactions, finances, your legal compliances, then corporate law is the path for you. But if you are someone who wants to argue real world cases, who wants to argue for our country, for clients, then court appearances, drafting petitions, research, it's your work as a litigator. So obviously success is measured by the amount of deal that has been closed, compliance, the level of compliance that has been achieved, and how the client has saved money from the process, how he or she has profited from the process. And success is measured very clearly if you are a litigator. whether you've won a case, whether you've lost a case, your track record basically measures your success. Talking about work hours, they are very long. If you are in corporate law, there's no Saturday, Sunday. They can even call you for straight 18-20 hours of work for consecutive 2-3 days. So there's no upper limit to work hours in a corporate law firm, and of course variable. So a day as a litigator basically is very variable. It depends upon your meetings, it depends upon your schedule, it depends upon the date of hearing. Now, where each path starts. So if you talk about corporate law firm, if you are a fresher corporate law firm associate, a junior level associate, so basically an NLU grad can earn up to 15 to 22.5 LPA. A tier 1 law firm but from a non-NLU, 8 to 14 lakhs again. A tier 2 law firm, 5 to 10 lakhs, and in-house corporate counsel for big companies like Adani, Ambani, Tatas, it's 6 to 12 LPA. And if you're into a big 4, which is KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, it's 18 to 14 LPA. And if you talk about litigation, so litigation monthly income is 5,000 to 15,000 per month, sometimes even 300 per appearance. So it's for a district court junior. High court junior can earn up to 15 to 50,000 per month. A Supreme Court junior earns up to 80,000 per month, starting from 25,000. And a small litigation firm can give you up to 40,000 per month. So if you talk about the starting salary, that is very different. Of course, this will look more enticing to you, but in the long run, if you want to have a good work-life balance, if you want to have connections, networks, if you want to handle big cases for big companies, big HNIs, then litigation can be your path. Now, if we talk about 25 years of earning, so the potential at your peak, you can earn up to 1 crore plus annually as a law firm partner when you buy into the firm. And if you talk about the peak of litigation, you can charge up to 25 lakhs per appearance. Of course, that is very rare. You must have seen in podcasts that senior advocates in Supreme Court, they earn up to 50 crores, 60 crores per year. So there's really no upper ceiling to it. Now let's talk about some specializations of corporate law. What corporate law means, what it entails, what are the different categories of corporate law. Let's just discuss that. So the first specialization, the most you can say preferred, is mergers and acquisitions. What it entails is structuring company buyouts and mergers. So once two companies merge, or once a company is acquiring the other company, so you have to work out the shareholder agreement, the responsibilities of each and every firm, the responsibilities of the key personnel, how the directors tables will look like. So that is all there in mergers and acquisitions. Salary premium is highest in corporate law. Second is private equity and venture capitalist firm. So basically this means that you are investing, you are helping your firm invest in private limited companies, those which are not publicly listed, those which are raising capital from VCs, from angel investors. That is private equity and venture capitalist fund. And salary premium, of course, very high after M&As. Banking and finance, you have to work for loan agreements, debt restructuring, how the debt structure for a particular organization should look like, what should be the working capital split, WACC. So that everything is there in banking and finance. Salary premium, of course, is very high. Then comes capital markets. When you work in IPOs, for small companies, you have to work for the red herring prospectus, also RHP. Then comes bond issuances, when you issue bonds to creditors, when the company issues bonds to the creditors, and you work under the SEBI compliance. Of course, the salary premium is very high. Then comes intellectual property. So it's a very fastly growing market, and there are many boutique firms which offer particularly this domain. You work for patents and trademarks of big companies, you work for copyright and corporate deals, and it's also a growing fast market. Then comes data privacy and cyber law. You work under the DPDP Act, you work for data breach response, and it's also the fastest growing market in terms of salary. Then comes corporate tax, again a very interesting domain to be in. You work for tax planning, tax saving, you work for tax dispute with government bodies. So it's also a very highly growing market in terms of salary. And then comes employment law. You work for HR policies, workforce compliance. You work basically for the policies that are made by the HR department, whether they are being enforced or not, whether the policies are in place, whether you need to make new policies. So that all comes under employment law. It's also a moderate market. This can be your last preference also. Now talking about the specializations which come under litigation, the first one is constitutional law. It's also what you study for your CLAT exam. You work for public interest litigations, you work for fundamental rights cases. So ideally you represent a group when you are working in this constitutional law domain. The earning potential is moderate, but the reputation is very high, since you get very high coverage under media also, and people know you that you're working for a big PIL. So the income is moderate, but the reputation is very high. Talking about criminal law, again one of the most sought after fields, but involves high risk. You work as a prosecutor, you work for defense in criminal matters, whether it's murder, theft. So you work as a criminal lawyer there, and the earning potential is variable, but it's very high at the top. You have to note down that these sort of lawyers, they also can charge up to 25-30 lakhs for one appearance. Then comes commercial disputes. This comes under civil law only. So you work for business contract disputes, whether it's a builder who's having a dispute with all the customers. Insolvency, when a big businessman becomes insolvent, whether a company files for insolvency, so you work under that, and it's very high once you're established. Now talking about tax litigation, when a company is not able to file GST, whether they are having a fraud under their GST filing, income tax also, so that comes under tax litigation, and the earning potential is very high, since you get a percentage of the money that you have saved for the firm. Now comes arbitration. It's a private dispute resolution. It's also growing very fast, comes under ADR only. Then comes family law. So there are certain sort of lawyers who work under divorce, custody of children after divorce, matrimonial property, and the earning potential is also moderate. Then comes consumer law, basically people who work for consumer rights under consumer forums, so that comes under consumer law. Now if we talk about the peak tier 1 law firms that can hire you if you are pursuing corporate law, then these are CAM, which is Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, AZB. Location for almost all the firms is Bombay or Delhi only. Then comes SAM, then Khaitan, then JSA Trilegal, SNR Associates. So if you talk about the salary, the highest salary that you can get is 22 LPA. So 18 to 22 LPA is the average package of these law firms. And if you're pursuing it from a tier 1 law firm, then tier 1 college, then you can expect your salary to be around this figure. The other law firms, basically they pay you 15 to 20 LPA. Now let's discuss all the parameters which you must take into mind when you are deciding your career. So the first parameter for everybody is social recognition. Social recognition in corporate law is lower because people really don't understand what you do. So unless you're a law firm partner, your social recognition will be very low. And talking about litigation, it's very high when you reach your potential. So the first parameter, social recognition, you can take into account for in litigation. The second is peer prestige in the legal community. So if you are working as a senior associate in tier 1 law firms like AZB, Trilegal, Khaitan & Co, it's very high. You get respected by all your peers, all your ex-college mates. And if you are a litigator, then it can be the highest if you are a senior advocate in Supreme Court. Academic prestige will be moderate in corporate law, but it's very, very high if you are a judge, if you are somebody who comes from a professor background, then that is very high. Political and public influence is almost nil. It's very high, but in case of a litigator, because many litigators, they transition into politics, they transition into an MP for the Rajya Sabha, so that is very high. Media visibility, of course, very, very low, because almost all the M&As, they are confidential, but it's very high if the court cases are public. So suppose there was a lawyer who was filing a petition for NEET leak, so he was very, very known in the media at the time. So if you're specifically working for a PIL, which is very, very you can say in hot action in the market, then litigator is the better path. Now talking about the legacy and impact, of course you have a good impact, you help the companies grow and you have an economic impact on the company itself. But if you are a litigator at a good level, then you can even shape law and rights. You have a constitutional impact, which will be the precedent for all the upcoming cases. So that is the case. Path to judiciary, you won't even get time to study for the exam, so that is very, very unlikely. But if you're a litigator, then the path is direct. Path to politics, very, very unlikely, you can say almost nil chances. But you can find many, many cases who have transitioned from litigator to a MP or an MLA. Arun Jaitley, Ram Jethmalani, Kapil Sibal. So these were the parameters, and given the parameters, you will definitely be inclined to become a litigator, but you also have to take into mind the financial considerations, the package that you are starting at, and also your family background, your priorities and needs, what role suits you. So you have to take into account everything, because being a litigator, of course, it's very you can say lucrative, but it's not the best path if you don't have a very good networking, if you don't have someone to fall on. So that's a very difficult path. So how exactly you should decide? So we have a framework here. So choose corporate law if you want financial stability, if you enjoy working with businesses, deals, commercial transactions, if you're somebody who likes paperwork, who likes to dive deeper into research, if you're comfortable in an office environment with structured hierarchy, if you can take accountability, if you can take responsibility, if you find courtroom drama very less appealing than contract negotiation, you want to specialize in M&A, PE, banking, IP or data law, you thrive with deadlines, precision drafting, of course if you're good in paperwork, that comes again, if you're open to working long hours and not have any work-life balance for let's say 1-2 years, and if you're open to working long hours in exchange for a good salary every month, then this is the path for you. Choose litigation if you want to argue, if you feel that the courtroom is where you feel alive, if you have arguing skills beneath you, then choose litigation. If you're comfortable with financial uncertainty, that is very, very important. As I told you, you have to take into consideration your family background, how you can sustain for the first few years. So if you're comfortable with financial uncertainty, then choose litigation. If you have the patience to build a reputation over 7-10 years, even 15-20 years, then that can be the path for you. If you want independence, you don't want to be accountable to anyone, you don't want a structured hierarchy over you. If you care about constitutional law, criminal justice, basically rewriting the law, and you want to be known, then litigation. And if you want the possibility of being a judge or a senior advocate or a politician, and if you're driven by the impact of cases, how your case has impacted the constitution, how it has shaped the constitution, so this can be the path for you. So this is it. I hope you found the video valuable, and I hope that you inculcate these insights before making any decision, and you will basically encounter everything once you enter into a law college. So you really cannot decide before entering into a law college which path you want to choose. So be open to everything, be open to moot court competitions, exchange programs, be open to everything, and then once you are in 3rd, 4th year, you'll automatically get the clarity. So thank you, all the best.